WNBA, as you know. They're calling for players in the WNBA are calling for more money. They 9%, I believe, accordingly. They get 9% of total revenue compared to roughly 50% of the revenue of NBA players. Should they be getting a larger share of the revenue in the WNBA?
Yes. I mean, I think the share isn't the right way to look at it because there's so much more revenue in the NBA. I think you should look at it in absolute numbers in terms of what they're making, and they are going to get a big increase in this cycle of collective bargaining, and they deserve it.
$50 million. That's the figure. Now whispered in boardrooms, a number so audacious it made the WNBA's typical $76,000 rookie salary sound like a cruel punchline. A decision approved that was never supposed to exist just lit a match under the entire league, illuminating a terrifying reality: the proclaimed untouchable stability of women's basketball. Gone, shattered. Someone just walked away smiling, leaving behind an inferno of questions that demand immediate answers. The real shock isn't merely who got paid a staggering sum, but who just lost complete control of their most valuable assets, and why this seismic shift changes everything for the future of professional women's sports. The ceiling isn't fixed, it just got blown wide open.
I've heard her in the past go on record and talk about money and her expectation and her hope that she makes enough money to build a house somewhere. The tone that she took had some people pessimistic about whether she would be returning to the Fever. But we can see from here that her mentality is not that she is going to be leaving. She is going to get plenty of money because of the nature of the CBA that is being negotiated. In the last CBA, she was making about a half max contract, just over $100,000 per year.
The core issue for years has been the WNBA's revenue share, a mere 9% for its players, starkly contrasting the NBA's roughly 50%. Players have been vocal, demanding more, rightfully feeling undervalued, while simply comparing percentages might seem flawed due to the NBA's colossal revenue. The absolute numbers players earn speak volumes. A significant increase is on the table in the current collective bargaining cycle, and it is long overdue, but the WNBA's historical reluctance to acknowledge this deep disparity has now created a crisis far bigger than simple contract negotiations. The fuse was lit long ago, and now the explosion is imminent.
The epic fumble of all fumbles is the WNBA fumbling this entire Caitlin Clark situation. It is absolutely a travesty and embarrassing. I didn't even see this Lexi Brown and Joy Taylor situation. I've posted plenty of things with Lexi Brown. Lexi Brown was one of the people that admitted Caitlin Clark was targeted by WNBA players. She admitted that there was a level of hostility toward Caitlin Clark that was not toward.
Caitlin Clark herself had previously voiced her hope to earn enough to build a house, a seemingly modest expectation that hinted at her frustration. Her tone at times made some speculate about her commitment to the Fever, but her mentality, it seems, was not about leaving for greener pastures entirely. It was about securing enough green. Under the last CBA, she was making just over $100,000 annually, a half-max contract. While the new CBA promises a substantial increase, it appears her financial desires far outstripped what even a max WNBA deal could offer, leading to outside offers no one in the league truly anticipated.
When she announced she was going pro, I immediately ran over to Lynn Dunn and said, "We have Elvis." She's like, "What?" I said, "There's been a lot of singers in music. There's only one Elvis. This is Elvis." And I knew, I've been in sports for 40 years. I knew this was something special. There's moving the needle. She's the needle. And I say it, there's been no one like her in all.
The WNBA spent years trying to convince everyone it was finally stable, growing, and untouchable. Yet, it somehow fumbled the one thing it could not afford to mishandle: the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. This has been labeled the epic fumble of all fumbles, a truly embarrassing and traumatic misstep. Even Lexi Brown, a fellow WNBA player, openly admitted there was a distinct level of hostility directed at Caitlin Clark, something not seen with any other player. While the league congratulated itself, the sports world watched a masterclass in undervaluing a golden goose, a catastrophic error that cost them dearly.
female bird. She had Van Slugenhagen on her. She was like, I'm offended that y'all have white defensive players guarding me, and she put her in the torture chamber. You should have known from her little face that she didn't want this matchup from the beginning. Caitlin reminds me of what Dame does. If anybody ever noticed, her first shot, always a three. First quarter, second quarter, third. She sets the distance on her first shot, so you have to guard her there. Now she can do whatever she wants to do. She's playing a chess game. That's what Dame does. He starts his game off. He's going to shoot a deep-ass three to force you to guard her from there.
While the WNBA was busy patting itself on the back for progress, the rest of the sports world witnessed a catastrophic miscalculation: how to undervalue your own golden goose until someone richer, louder, and far less patient arrived with a checkbook and a smirk. From the moment Clark announced she was going pro, seasoned sports executives knew they had Elvis. Not just another singer, but the one, the needle itself. For 40 years, one veteran knew this was something special, a game changer unlike anything women's basketball had ever seen. Yet the league itself seemed oblivious to the true scale of the talent it possessed.
Any other rookies from the pages, none of them dealt with the things that Caitlin had to deal with. And Lexi Brown admitted it. Now we have them. She makes it very clear. She's dealt with Nafisa Collier. She's been a teammate of hers. And these players, rather than getting a deal done, they're more focused on getting Kathy Engelberg fired. And this whole thing is backfiring on these players to the point where they couldn't even get a response from the owners. The owners are saying, let's move on.
Many within the system believed it was all working. The league had its star, momentum was locked in, and Caitlin Clark merely had to smile, endure the hits, and be grateful for the platform. That belief, however, aged about as gracefully as milk left baking on a Phoenix sidewalk in July. The reality was a stark contrast to the league's complacent narrative. While fans flocked and ratings soared, Clark was subjected to aggressive defense, often described as a torture chamber, making every game a battle just to stay on the court. The league mistakenly thought it owned her destiny, failing to see the storm brewing.
Even if she gets not a single percentage more than that, she is going to be making at least $500,000 a year under the new CBA. She may be making more than that, depending on the CBA that they finally settle upon. But it's not going to be anything that she's not going to be able to fulfill all of her financial desires with. To say nothing of her participation in Project B, which is going to give her at least $2 million for a...
When your biggest attraction is routinely body-checked like a rental car and forced to fly commercial, all while carrying your entire league's relevance on her back, you aren't building a future. You are, in essence, advertising a clearance sale. Caitlin Clark didn't just join the WNBA, she dragged it into conversations it had desperately begged to be part of for decades. Sold-out arenas ceased being a rare achievement and became the expected norm. Television ratings required no more charitable explanations. The surge in merchandise sales was so rapid it made executives nervous, exposing the profound inadequacy of the league's existing infrastructure.
The NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, who appeared on the Today Show in New York earlier this week, speaking out.
So in an exclusive, anchor Craig Melvin asked the commissioner what he thought about players in the WNBA demanding more money and whether they should have a larger... Yes, they do deserve it. I mean, it is ridiculous how less they make than women or than men. So the collective bargaining agreement between...
Clark masterfully transformed casual viewers into devoted regulars and skeptics into eager ticket buyers. And she achieved all of this while earning a salary that, to put it bluntly, would barely cover parking fees at some NBA arenas. This glaring discrepancy between her market value and her actual compensation served as a flashing neon sign for external players. It wasn't just about the money she wasn't getting, it was about the fundamental disrespect inherent in a system that expected such monumental output for such minuscule reward, signaling weakness to anyone, Reiking.
Because you got Caitlin Clark, and everybody's excited. You got money. Now, here's the deal when it gets real interesting, and you start talking about money because you got the Kansas City Commission, right? And Adam Silver, you open up a can of worms is bigger than he could do, right? Because you got now a situation where the WNBA, okay, there's not going to be a 90% revenue split.
Then there's Sophie Cunningham, who somehow became the most profoundly misunderstood figure in this entire unfolding drama. People love to pretend that professional sports are solely about box scores, as if personality, marketability, and genuine audience connection are just cute, negligible side bonuses. Yet, Sophie brings an undeniable edge, a unique visibility, and a brand appeal that federally travels far beyond the confines of the basketball court. She ignites conversations, provokes reactions, and drives the kind of authentic engagement that leagues typically spend millions on consultants trying desperately to manufacture.
I'm going to tell you, man, it ain't looking good for Caitlin Clark's 2026 season. Now, I know a lot of y'all been kind of mad about me saying these things I've been saying about the WNBA, which is fine. It's fine. The things I've been saying about Caitlin Clark hype. I just want to be transparent with y'all because when the fall come, it's going to hit hard for everybody. I just got to keep it real. You know, look, I will take one for the team. And that's what I've been doing in the WNBA genre because I've been putting y'all on notice with everything that has been happening.
Pairing Sophie Cunningham with Caitlin Clark isn't just about combining raw talent. It creates a literal traveling media event, an electrifying phenomenon that transcends traditional sports coverage. Other rookies, in stark contrast, never had to navigate the intense scrutiny and open hostility that Caitlin endured, a fact Lexi Brown publicly acknowledged. While these internal conflicts raged, some players, instead of focusing on securing a new collective bargaining agreement, became fixated on getting Commissioner Kathy Engelbert fired. This internal strife ultimately backfired spectacularly, leading owners to effectively dismiss their demands and look towards other solutions.
That there are things we need to do with our you have son who plays basketball. I think there are things we need to do about youth development here. There are aspects of the international game, especially in terms of young players, boys and girls, that frankly is just better than what we're doing in the U.S. right now.
What'd you say?
200,000 a year.
Disgrace. Asia Wilson should be making $10 million a year.
Caitlin's making, she's still on her rookie contract.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like
70 to 80,000.
I never knew this.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
This is precisely where the situation became profoundly uncomfortable for the WNBA. While the league was busy pretending that everything remained firmly under control, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver was far from asleep at the wheel. He didn't need to loudly shout or posture aggressively. All he had to do was meticulously observe the rapidly escalating numbers, patiently watch the ensuing chaos unfold, and recognize a familiar, dangerous pattern, a pattern he had witnessed other leagues lose to before. When established organizations obstinately refuse to evolve, markets simply do not wait politely for them to catch up. They correct violently, without mercy.
Caitlin Clark hype, told y'all how the Indiana Fever messed up her shot. Reason why she was hurt was because of them adding all that muscle. Y'all gotta go back and look, bruh. But it's cool. I take one for the team. Now, with that being said, I told y'all the funeral was coming. The WNBA might be over with, at least for the foreseeable future. That is because they want all this money that they do not have. And I hate to say this because I love Caitlin Clark so much. And for those of y'all always wondering, Caitlin Clark poster is still back.
The WNBA had one foundational job: to actively protect the very players who were, against all odds, dragging it forward into a new era of relevance. Instead, it allowed simmering resentment to masquerade as healthy competitiveness and let utter confusion pretend to be genuine toughness. Caitlin Clark, the league's undeniable star, absorbed fouls that increasingly looked less like legitimate defense and more like an insidious hazing ritual that nobody within the league wanted to openly admit existed. Officiating decisions felt inconsistent at best and deeply dismissive at worst, eroding trust among everyone observing the spectacle.
People thought the system was working, that the league had its star, the momentum was locked in, and all Caitlin Clark had to do was smile, take the hits, and be grateful. That belief aged about as well as milk left on a Phoenix sidewalk in July.
Fans noticed the blatant inconsistencies, casual viewers began to question the integrity of the game, and most critically, serious investors definitely noticed the troubling instability. When the core product begins to look inherently unstable and riddled with internal conflict, money, with an almost gravitational pull, inevitably starts looking elsewhere for more secure and promising opportunities. That elsewhere, in this unfolding saga, turned out to be incredibly well-funded, meticulously organized, and extremely serious about its intentions. The league's self-inflicted wounds became irresistible invitations for outside forces to step in. When initial reports surfaced that Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham were being actively courted with mind-boggling contracts that made typical WNBA salaries look like pocket change, it was hardly shocking to those paying close attention. In fact, it felt utterly inevitable. You simply cannot suppress market value forever without facing severe and predictable consequences. The truly astonishing part was not the offers themselves, but the shockingly minimal resistance the WNBA seemed capable of mounting. Once those staggering numbers definitively entered the public conversation, it exposed a deep structural vulnerability that had been festering for years. Under the new CBA, even without any further negotiation, Caitlin Clark is projected to earn at least $500,000 annually. However, that figure pales in comparison to the reported $2 million for her participation in Project B, and especially the rumored $50 million offers now on the table. A $50 million offer does not engage in polite negotiation with a mere $76,000 salary. It simply laughs at it, perhaps pats it condescendingly on the head, and then casually asks if it would like to come along for the monumental ride. Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, didn't need to lift a single finger to completely obliterate the WNBA's already fragile bargaining position. He simply allowed raw market reality to do all the brutal, unflinching work for him. The NBA model inherently understands the critical importance of star protection, robust revenue sharing, and widespread visibility. It learned these invaluable lessons the hard way, through past struggles, realizing that top-tier talent will always gravitate to where it is genuinely treated best. When a system publicly allows its biggest, most marketable assets to be profoundly undervalued, it sends an unmistakable message to the entire world that those assets are, in essence, openly available for acquisition, and available, as we are now seeing they most certainly are, prompting a predatory circling of outside organizations. These other organizations are not merely circling Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham out of pure charity or fleeting curiosity. They distinctly see leverage. They observe a league that is visibly struggling to justify its own deeply entrenched rules, all while paradoxically asking its most valuable stars to sacrifice indefinitely for a vague promise of future growth that perpetually seems just one elusive season away. They clearly see elite athletes whose names effortlessly drive global engagement, yet whose actual working conditions starkly scream local minor league energy. That enormous gap is not a problem for these outside investors. It is a golden opportunity. The WNBA tried desperately to sell patience as a virtue, clinging to tradition, while others arrived decisively, selling tangible ownership, undeniable equity, and genuine respect. It tried to frame its notoriously low pay as merely a temporary inconvenience, a necessary sacrifice, while external forces framed massive, life-changing contracts as merely a starting point. One side humbly asked for unwavering loyalty, the other boldly offered private jets, unparalleled global exposure, and financial security that could genuinely span generations. That, irrespective of how much nostalgic tradition you sprinkle on top, is simply not a difficult comparison for any rational athlete to make. Adam Silver's quiet dominance truly shines through in this unfolding saga. He fundamentally understands that you don't effectively block surging competition by naively pretending it simply doesn't exist. Instead, you effectively block it by meticulously ensuring your own core product doesn't appear fragile, vulnerable, or easily exploitable. The WNBA, tragically, did the exact opposite. It inadvertently exposed deep internal tension, glaringly inconsistent leadership, and a profound unwillingness to adapt quickly enough to protect its hard-won momentum. When Stephen A. Smith repeatedly sounded the alarm, it was effortlessly dismissed as mere noise. In devastating hindsight, he was accurately narrating a slow-motion collapse. Because once elite athletes truly realize they possess genuine options, the fundamental balance of power shifts instantaneously and irreversibly. Silence from the league becomes a calculated strategy. Non-denials of lucrative offers transform into powerful leverage. Every single day the WNBA avoids directly addressing these outside offers, it conspicuously signals its profound uncertainty and weakness. Every day Caitlin Clark boards another commercial flight despite generating millions for the league. It starkly reinforces the dangerous idea that loyalty is being tragically mistaken for mere obligation. Every ignored foul and every brusquely brushed off playoff controversy adds yet another compelling reason for its stars to intently listen when someone else calls. The WNBA is now grappling with the terrifying existential realization that it no longer truly owns its own future. It naively borrowed immense relevance from Caitlin Clark and in a profound miscalculation simply assumed she would never demand it back. It further assumed its players would passively accept being perpetually underpaid because historical precedent suggested they simply had nowhere else viable to go. That deeply flawed assumption died the precise moment outside organizations definitively proved. They were not only willing but eager to build something entirely new, rather than meekly beg for entry into something that was visibly broken beyond repair. Adam Silver did not destroy the WNBA by actively intervening. He simply destroyed the illusion that it was somehow immune to the brutal forces of competition, exposing its brittleness by allowing market forces to operate unhindered. The irony is truly painful. The league finally achieved what it had relentlessly pursued for so long: unprecedented attention, soaring ratings, undeniable relevance, and an intoxicating cultural buzz. And then, in a staggering display of mismanagement, it treated that hard-won success not as a precious gift, but as an inconvenient problem that needed to be contained. It desperately tried to manage stardom, to control it, instead of enthusiastically embracing its full, transformative power, and now it is forced to watch helplessly from the sidelines as other, more agile entities offer the very things it stubbornly refused to prioritize for its own players. Caitlin Clark doesn't even need to physically leave the WNBA to unequivocally prove a point. The mere possibility that she could, the very threat of it, has already changed absolutely everything, permanently shattering old paradigms. Sophie Cunningham doesn't need to sign any new deal to expose the league's deep-seated flaws. Her prominent inclusion in these discussions alone brilliantly highlights how modern sports economics truly work. Together, they powerfully represent a future that the WNBA itself helped to inadvertently create, but now appears utterly incapable of genuinely sustaining. Adam Silver understood this pivotal moment long before the league did. He didn't have to utter a single word. The quiet obliteration happened through stark contrast, undeniable competence, and the uncomfortable dawning realization that someone else is always willing to do precisely what you will not. The league's leverage, which depended entirely on players believing they had nowhere else to go, is gone.